Let me say something that will offend religious people, but free, disciplined people. God does not decide who prospers. His laws do. Prosperity isn't emotional. It isn't mysterious. And it certainly isn't random. If wealth feels confusing, it's because you were taught faith without structure. Today, I'm going to walk you through 5 financial laws the Bible never breaks, and once you understand them, prosperity stops feeling spiritual and starts feeling predictable. This isn't hype. This isn't prosperity gospel. This is biblical. God governs everything by law. Gravity doesn't pray before it works. Seeds don't wait for permission to grow, and harvest doesn't respond to intention. It responds to order. Money is no different. The Bible is not a book of motivation. It's a book of patterns. And whenever people follow the pattern, the outcome follows too. Let's walk through the laws. Law number 1. Stewardship precedes increase. Every increase in Scripture comes after stewardship is proven. Before Israel entered the Promised Land, God didn't multiply them. He tested them. Before David ruled, he stewarded sheep. Before Joseph ruled Egypt, he stewarded a prison. God does not multiply potential. He multiplies performance with responsibility. This is why chaos blocks blessing. You cannot ask God to multiply a budget you don't follow, money you don't track, time you waste, or credit you abuse. That's not spiritual warfare. That's mismanagement. The problem isn't that Christians don't pray. The problem is they pray for increase while living in disorder. Unfortunately, they still haven't learned that God will not violate his own law. A person praying for a business breakthrough but can't manage personal finances. He has no budget, he has no tracking, and he has no discipline. God doesn't reward chaos with expansion. He waits for stewardship. Someone asking for a higher income while overdrafting their bank account monthly. More money wouldn't solve the problem. It would magnify it. That's why increase doesn't come. A couple believing God for generational wealth but refusing to plan, organize, or align. Legacy requires structure before multiplication. Stewardship is always the gatekeeper. Law number 2. Multiplication is not optional. The parable of the talents is uncomfortable for religious people. Why? Because no one sins, and someone still gets rebuked. The 1-talent servant didn't steal. He didn't waste money. He didn't disobey. He just did nothing. And Jesus called that servant wicked. Why? Because preservation is not faithfulness when multiplication is possible. God does not give resources to be frozen revealingly in fear. He gives them expecting growth. Maintenance. Christianity produces stagnant lives. If your financial life looks exactly the same every year, something is wrong spiritually. Someone holding money in a savings account for 15 years, afraid to learn, invest, or build anything with it. That's preservation, not stewardship. A believer refusing to scale skills, education, or systems because I don't want to be greedy. Growth isn't greed. Fear-based inactivity is the real issue. A business owner refusing to hire help because control feels safer than multiplication. Jesus never praised safety. He rewarded increase. Law number 3. Ownership changes authority. Jesus never taught from the perspective of employees. He taught from the perspective of landowners, vineyard managers, investors, and kings. Why? Because ownership creates authority. When you own nothing, you respond to emergencies emotionally. You depend on systems you don't control, and you have no margin to obey God boldly. Many don't realize that debt removes authority, but ownership restores it. This is why Scripture condemns slavery to lenders. God never designed his people to live paycheck to paycheck forever. Provision is mercy, but ownership is maturity. Two people earn the same income. One rents forever, one owns appreciating assets. 10 years later, one has leverage. The other is stuck. A family dependent on a single employer versus a family with diversified ownership. One crisis collapses everything for the first family. The second adapts. Debt-controlled households making decisions based on bills instead of calling. Ownership restores alignment. Law number 4. Systems outlive sacrifice. Jesus was not impressed by effort. He was impressed by structure. He sent people out. He multiplied leadership, and he created systems that worked after he left Earth. Here's a truth most Christians miss. If everything depends on you, it will always stay small. Burnout is not spiritual, and exhaustion is not holy. Running yourself into the ground is not obedience. God favors systems because systems compound. Effort fades, but systems multiply. Someone working 60 hours a week but can't step away without income collapsing. That's labor, not freedom. A business with no automation, delegation, or systems burns out the owner. Effort caps impact, but systems multiply it. Churches or ministries that collapse when the leader leaves, but Jesus built systems that survived his departure. He shows us exactly what to do and how to do it, but we didn't take heed. Law number 5. Legacy is the design. The Bible does not speak casually about inheritance. It commands it. Why? Because God thinks generationally. Wealth without structure dies, wealth without teaching disappears, and wealth without systems evaporates. This is why most inheritances are lost. Most businesses fail by generation 2, and most Christians restart from zero. Legacy is not automatic, it is designed. Families restarting from zero every generation is because no structure existed. Businesses dying after the founder dies is because systems weren't documented or taught. Parents funding consumption but never teaching stewardship. This is what caused money to evaporate. In conclusion, God's financial laws are not emotional. They're consistent, they're fair, and they're predictable. Once you align with them, prosperity stops being mystical and starts being predictable. Subscribe to the channel if you want scripture with structure, not confusion.